Weeding is what you spend most of your time doing. However, with the hydroponic system, if you have them separate in these clay pods, no weeds to be seen. So you cut time on that, that's great. A second advantage is that you actually save water because you're not having to constantly water the plants because they have a supply of it. So that is actually a great advantage to not have to water a hydroponic system. Another great advantage is that there are fewer soil-borne pests in a hydroponic system because when you have soil plants, there's typical bacteria, soil bacteria, and some are good and some are bad. And you can also have a number of different insects that can harm your plants, bring disease to the plants, and that's something that you absolutely want to avoid. So it's a great thing that you can do that without actually having soil. Now the fourth advantage, as you probably imagined, is that hydroponics is indoors. So when you have negative 10-degree weather in Ohio, like we had this last winter, you can still be growing plants. We had lettuce growing in December, we've had basil growing since January, so it's a huge advantage for Ohio farmers especially, who find that they can no longer crop or plant outside, and so they simply bring it in. So it's great for year-round production, which is phenomenal. There are a few disadvantages with hydroponics. Keep in mind, you do need artificial light, so that's something I should mention. So as these plants grow in a pod like this, typically what they'll have is an artificial light right above them. Just looks like a UV light. If you look up in your classroom, you likely have them in the ceiling, just a long bar, and that's what's used. And so that's great. It delivers a constant light, but it is more expensive because you're paying for your electric and things like that. So that's something to be mindful of. And you also have to be very careful with hydroponics because you can only grow certain products in them. For instance, root vegetables like potatoes and carrots and turnips, those are great, but unfortunately they don't do well in hydroponics because they really require that soil buildup to have a strong foundation. So instead, to make hydroponics work, we find crops that do well. And among them are lettuce, endives, basil, we're growing a tomato plant, and we're hoping to expand. Some have grown strawberries in hydroponics. It's a very wide world. As soon as you get into a niche of a hydroponics, you can make it work well for you. Any questions about hydroponics? Marv, do you have any questions? Just making sure.